Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm Brian Manning, and I want to answer your questions today about winning asylum in America. So, I used to be an asylum officer with the government, but now, as an asylum lawyer, well, my law firm helps immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. And I want to answer your questions today about asylum. So, look, let me know in the comments what questions you have about asylum. But first, before you drop those questions, say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to see where our community, where our followers are at. I like to imagine you guys in your various cities and see where folks are at. Look, we've got clients all over the country. So we're based in Houston, Texas, but it doesn't really matter where we're based because we help people all over the country. All right. We've got Artwell on YouTube says, "Hi, Brian, San Francisco in the house." Nice. I love San Francisco, man. I had never been to San Francisco until about 3 or 4 years ago, but probably 3 years ago. No, 4 years ago. I went for the first time for work for an asylum case. And I loved it. And then I've been back like 3 more times since, like once just for straight up vacation for like a few days. And it was great. I love San Francisco. I think it's awesome. Artwell, I'm glad that you're here over on YouTube. We got several folks joining on YouTube. Hey, TikTok, good morning. Unstoppable Zone says hi. Hello. Good to see you, Unstoppable Zone. Thanks for joining us over on TikTok. We got folks coming in on LinkedIn and Facebook as well. Oh, another San Francisco. Dr. Prabhat Luthra says San Francisco in the house. We got 2 San Franciscos in the house. Nice. Agadarog says, "Hello, Brian. It's been a long time. Nice to see you again. Thank you very much, Brian. I live in New York, but I am from Burkina Faso, Ouagadougou." I think we went over this, right? Did I impress you with my knowledge of the capital of Burkina Faso? I know that not from my experience as an asylum officer, but rather as an ex-diplomat. I used to be a diplomat. And so I had friends that were posted to our embassy in Ouagadougou. People from Burkina Faso are impressed that when I throw that out there, because not many Americans probably have ever heard that word. So a little street cred for me. Good to see you, Agadarog. Thank you for being with us from New York, one of the great cities of the world. I love New York as well. All right. Amarillo, Texas says Sam TV1 show on fire. Nice. Amarillo out in West Texas. We're based in Houston, which is very far from Amarillo. Texas is enormous. If you didn't know, it takes 12, 15 hours to drive across the whole thing, something like that. Very, very big state. All right. What do we got? Good morning. For those who just joined, I'm Brian. I'm an asylum lawyer. I used to be an asylum officer, and now I'm using the knowledge that I gained during my 11 years working for the government's 2 main agencies for refugee and asylum matters. I'm using that knowledge to give our clients the best possible chance to secure their future in America through asylum. That's what we do all day, every day in my law firm is asylum. We don't take other kinds of cases. We don't take marriage-based immigration. We don't take employment or investment-based immigration cases. We do asylum all day, every day. All right, let's see. What questions do we have? Go ahead and leave your questions in the chat. What do you want to know about winning asylum in America? All right. Look, John Simpira says, when I'm applying for my initial EAD, what should I say on the part if I've ever been arrested? I indicated in my personal statement that I was arrested but not charged in my home country. I would say yes. I know it's annoying to have to do that. And you might get a request for evidence about it, but it's better to say that and be open and honest than it is to have them compare that to your asylum application and say, "Oh, you lied." Look, this is something that, to be completely honest with you, is unlikely to get noticed at this stage. However, later, it very well could get noticed. I shouldn't say caught as in you're trying to lie, because I understand your question to mean like that the way you're putting it, that You wouldn't be trying to lie, but you think that they probably only are really talking about in the U.S., but you were arrested, I'm guessing, unlawfully without legal basis in your home country, and that, you know, you're wondering whether that counts as an arrest for purposes of like what they're asking about in this EAD application form. And it's possible that at the stage where you're ready to apply, where you apply for your green card based on your approved asylum case, I hope you get approved, that this is the kind of thing that they could look back at. They like at that moment, they like to look back at your entire immigration packet, your whole file. And they could see that and they could go, he said in his EAD application he's never been arrested, but his asylum case, he talks all about being arrested. He lied. He must be lying about his asylum case. He's lying about one or the other. He's a fraudster. And it can cause trouble. It can cause you to not just have your green card application denied, but also to have them even try to take away your asylum status and try to deport you. Okay. All right. Mehboob says, our houses are being demolished illegally in India, and I'm an atheist, also facing isolation from our own community. I'm sorry to hear that. That sounds really tough, Mehboob. I guess the question is, this. Can you get asylum in the United States if you're having problems because you're an atheist? Like, let's say you live in a pretty religious society, probably maybe, you know, conservatively religious, and you're facing problems because you don't follow that religion. You're an atheist, or maybe agnostic or something, or maybe you follow that religion but not in the way that they want you to. Can you get asylum based on this, or are religious-based asylum claims only for people from different religions having conflict? You can win asylum as an atheist. In other words, if you're persecuted because the persecutors don't like the fact that you're an atheist, or that you're not religious, or that you're not enough religious, or not the right kind of religious, then that can still be a valid asylum case. Okay. You mentioned you're from India. Yeah, we've seen lots of religious-based persecution claims from India and had success with them. We should talk. I want you to go to winasylum.com. I hope you'll schedule a consultation with us. We've helped a lot of people from India, and we know these cases well. When I was an asylum officer with the government, I handled a lot of cases from India. I know this context well, and my team is good with these cases. Go to winasylum.com to schedule this consultation with us so we can see if we think we can help you. winasylum.com. Again, that's winasylum.com. winasylum.com to schedule the consultation, okay? All right, let's go to see what questions we have. If my spouse had multiple entries due to a vacation on F1, but her recent status is H1B, in the periods of stay, do I have to put status changes as well on the I-589 form? No, there's not a question that asks about status. There's not a question that asks about status changes. There's just the question about entries and says, at the time of entry, what status did you enter on? So as long as she answers those, accurately, correctly, you don't need to go out of your way to find some way to explain, like, oh, but then I changed status at this certain time to this, and then I changed back. Like, no, you don't. There's no question that asks on the application form that would require you to provide that information. It's not on the form. Okay. My Salbotic says, my boyfriend has an asylum hearing in Miami in February. He's from Venezuela. Look, Salbiotics, over half of our clients are from Venezuela. We know those cases extremely well. We've helped a lot of people from Venezuela. Okay. They should talk with us. We speak Spanish. Almost everyone in my law firm speaks Spanish. We handle these cases all the time. We've had a lot of success with Venezuelan asylum cases, okay? Including in Miami, we've had success with Venezuelans. So look, have your boyfriend go to winasylum.com, or you can go schedule it for him if he agrees to it at winasylum.com, winasylum.com, okay? Artwell says someone who's diagnosed with PTSD and depression as a result of the bad things that happened in their country and has been going to therapy. What are the chances of getting their interview expedited? Well, first of all, if that's been going on with you, I'm really sorry to hear that. That's tough, and I hope that you're getting the help that you need for that. And I'm really sorry you're in this difficult position. Okay. So the question is this: can you get your asylum interview expedited or sped up based on the fact that you're facing some mental health challenges, like maybe depression, PTSD, these kinds of things, based on what you've been through in your country, the persecution that you've suffered? Is that a reason that you can use to get your interview scheduled? If you've been waiting for your asylum interview and you want to have it, you can try. If you have evidence that this is really affecting you, and ideally a letter or some kind of examination result from a mental health provider that you've seen that talks about this and explains what you're facing and how bad it is, and ideally connecting it to what you endured in your country, then you can use that in support of a request for what's called a humanitarian expedite to move your case forward. There's no harm in trying this. There's no downside. If they say no, it doesn't like hurt your case. So there's no risk. There's no downside. But the chances for success with moving your case forward based on this, are low. The asylum offices rarely grant these humanitarian expedite requests. If you've been waiting for 5 years or more for your interview, I think you're in a very good position to have success with a Mandamus lawsuit of suing the government to force them to give you your interview. This is a much, 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 much more powerful tool, much more likely for success. We help people with this all the time. Past results don't guarantee any kind of future success, but I do want to tell you, we've never lost one of these yet. We've filed, I think, probably maybe like 200 of them in the last year and a half or 2 years. We haven't lost one yet, okay? There's no guarantee that we would win your case or that we would win any other Mandamus case that someone hires us for. But what I'm trying to tell you is that it's a very powerful tool. Our clients love it because it works really, really well. If you're sick of waiting, we should talk about suing the government to move your case forward. Okay. Celbotic says the boyfriend who has the hearing in Miami. You said he's afraid to go to. We live in Georgia. He's afraid to go to Miami because they've been taking people at their hearings. Any recommendations? Look, I think the risk of him being detained at the individual hearing, the final hearing, is pretty low. But you can try to avoid it by asking the judge if he can do the hearing virtually. So look, the question is this: what's the risk of being detained when you go to your individual hearing in immigration court? We're talking about what's usually the second one. Sometimes it's called the merits hearing or the individual hearing, the one where you really present and fight your case. Look, the chances of being detained at that one are a lot lower than they are at the first hearing called the master calendar hearing. At the individual hearing, the risks are a lot lower. We've not been seeing near as many of arrests or detentions at that hearing. Look, if you have a criminal record in the U.S., that's different. Then you're at pretty high risk. But if you don't, then I think the risk is probably pretty low. It's not zero. It's not zero. You do have to be prepared for a possible arrest, but I think the risk is not that high. Here's what you can do, though. You can ask the judge to do it virtually by video conference. The judge is more likely to say yes if you live kind of far away from the court. But even if you don't, you can still ask. We try to have pretty much all of our hearings for our clients done by video conference, even if the person lives right next to the court. We think, in addition to trying to avoid this risk of arrest, we think that it's just better. We think that our clients tend to perform better when they're in the comfort of their own home, as opposed to being in sort of the intimidating setting of the courtroom with the prosecutor, glaring over at you from the table and trying to intimidate you. So yeah, you can do a motion to have the hearing held by video conference. Okay. Adonai says 150 days after the second interview, they indicated initiated, because of inconsistency in affidavit submitted. I testified the reason. Yesterday I called the office and they said it's under supervisory review. May 13, action taken email. Look, Adonai, basically the question is this. What can you do if you've been waiting for a long time for your decision after your asylum interview? Look, sometimes people wait years to get their interview, and then they might wait several months or even years to get the decision after the interview. If you wait for more than a month, I would say call the asylum office and email them and say, hey, just wanted to let you know if you could please pass along to the officer who interviewed me the fact that I said that I'm ready to provide any more information or documents they might need to make a decision. By the way, do you think you could let me know when I could expect the decision? Sometimes, rarely, but sometimes that's enough to make the case move forward. If that doesn't work and you've waited more, then you need to consider suing if you applied for asylum 5 years or more ago. If you applied for asylum 5 or more years ago from that point that you applied until right now, then you're in a position probably to have success, a good chance for success with suing the government in a mandamus lawsuit to force them to give you your decision. I talk about this mandamus lawsuit all the time, usually in the context of suing the government to force an interview. But guess what? You can also use it, and we do also use it in my law firm, to force a decision in a stalled case after the interview. Okay. Khakan says, I'm from an Ahmadiyya community from Pakistan. Do I have a chance for asylum? I can't even give you an indication based just off of that. I'd have to know more about your particular circumstances. Has anything happened to you that is harmful, or anything happened that makes you think that you specifically are going to be at risk in the future, or others in your community? We'd have to talk, Khakan, in more detail about your situation to see if we think you have a real chance for success. To talk about whether it makes sense to apply for asylum, okay? It's Meezy says, for interfaith marriages, if we only register a marriage in the United States and kept it a secret in India, can you win based on the future possibility of persecution? Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't matter that you haven't been formally married in India. And you can win based on the future possibility of persecution. It's a good question. The question is this. Can you win asylum even if you've never been harmed or threatened at all in the past, back in your home country? Yeah, you can. Look, it's easier to win if you can establish that you've suffered past persecution, harm in the past that is sufficiently severe to rise to the level of persecution in the way that term is understood in the context of U.S. asylum law. That makes for a good case. But it's not required. You can win without any past harm or even threats or even any indication that you're at risk, as long as you show that you're at risk in the future, that you have a well-founded fear of persecution. And this is usually the context that we usually see this in, no past harm or threats, but a well-founded fear established of future persecution, is cases where maybe the people back in your home country didn't know that you possessed this certain characteristic, but they'll find out if you go back, or you shouldn't be, we shouldn't expect that you would hide this characteristic anymore if you had to go back. Like, for example, someone who comes out as a member of the LGBTQ community, or someone who changes religions. Maybe, they didn't have any problems in the past in their home country because of that, but that something has changed, or at least they would want to live openly in those sort of identities now, and they should be allowed to do so. But doing so would put them at risk because country conditions information, reports, news articles, things like that show that anyone fitting that profile is at real risk of being persecuted. That's an example of, scenarios where you can win asylum based just on the future and without ever having been harmed or even threatened or even had any problems at all maybe in the past. It's possible, and yeah, we do. We win these cases for sure. Okay. If you want to talk with us about your asylum case, go to winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com. That's where you can schedule an asylum strategy session with one of our asylum professionals. We want to talk with you. We want to get to know you. We want to ask a lot of questions. It's pretty deep, pretty detailed. about your situation and tell you whether we think that we're in a position to help you. If we think that we are, we're going to explain to you how we would do that, like concretely what the exact steps would be to support you, because we actually have a framework. We actually have a strategy for how to go about building the strongest asylum case possible. Look, if you call most asylum lawyers and most immigration lawyers, they'll just say, oh, don't worry about it. We'll put together a case for you. We'll make it strong. Don't worry. But they won't tell you how. Even if you ask them for details, they won't tell you how, because they don't have a plan. They don't have a strategy. They just sort of wing it. And a lot of them, to be honest with you, don't really know what they're doing. I was really surprised when I was an asylum officer with the government to see that most immigration lawyers really didn't know much at all about asylum. Why? Because they don't focus on it. They're not laser focused on it. They handle this kind of immigration case and that kind of immigration case, mainly marriage-based, family-based cases, maybe a little employment-based. Maybe they do some criminal law. Maybe they do some divorce and family law on the side too. And every once in a while, yeah, sure, we'll do asylum. That's not good enough. Asylum is too complex, and the policies and interpretations around it change too quickly to work with anyone who is not laser focused on it. That's why asylum is what we do all day, every day. We don't take other kinds of immigration cases. We don't take other kinds of legal cases. We do asylum all day, every day. Okay. Can I still file for asylum after 20 years of living in the U.S., married to a U.S. citizen with kids, says Beauty Addicts 05. Look, it's probably going to be really hard to win. If you're married to a U.S. citizen, probably the best route for you is to seek a green card based on that marriage. That's if it's a real legitimate marriage. That is probably a much better route than asylum, especially given that you've been here for 20 years and not yet applied. I think I would, if I were you, I would start by talking with an immigration lawyer who focuses on family-based immigration. That's where you should start, okay? Is it necessary to mention a country you visited as a tourist on tourism visa after being harmed in your home country as a way to flee persecution, or can you leave that out? Good question. The question is this. Do you need to tell the asylum officer about other countries that you went to after fleeing your country? Or maybe you went from your country to another country for some reason and then back to your country. Do you need to tell the asylum officer about these other countries you've been in? And the answer is, if you're asked about it, yes. And you almost certainly will be. Usually at the end of the asylum interview, they say something like, okay, tell me what other countries you visited, or have you ever been to any other countries outside of your own country in the United States? And they want you to tell them. And so if they ask a question that, yeah, is meant to solicit this kind of information, then yeah, you should be open and honest about it. It won't necessarily hurt your case. It doesn't necessarily mean you will lose. They just want to know about it, and they might ask why. Like, look, if you were in your country and then you went on vacation, or for whatever reason, or maybe you were fleeing persecution, but you went to another country and then you went back to your country, they may say, well, look, if you were being persecuted in your country and then you left it for this other country, why didn't you apply for asylum there, or at least come from there straight to the United States? Why'd you go back to your country where you supposedly were afraid of being harmed? There's often a very reasonable explanation for this. You just need to give it. You just need to explain what you were actually thinking, what actually happened. Just tell the truth. But I'm saying you need to be ready to answer questions about that if you did that, okay? All right. Nobody says, hey, Brian, this person's YouTube handle is nobody. Under which circumstances does the officer suggest you to do internal relocation to deny your case? The question is this. When might your asylum case be denied because of internal relocation? So look, this is this concept under U.S. asylum law that says that, well, look, if you could just go to some other place in your country and be safe, then you don't need asylum here. You should just go back and move to that other region or to that other city. And yeah, this does lead to some asylum denials. I would say it's kind of rare. The way that it works is if the government, if the people that are persecuting you that you fear work for the government, then you usually don't have to show much in the way of, oh, I can't move and be safe, because there exists under the law what's called a presumption or a rebuttable presumption that because it's the government, they have the resources to harm people anywhere. And so it's kind of assumed that you could not be safe anywhere. But it's more tricky if the persecutors are private actors. If they don't work for the government, then the officer's going to have a lot more questions for you about, well, why not this place? And they might even look at a map and say, why not go to this other city, this other big city over here? How would they find you there? How would they know that you're there? Why couldn't you just fit in and live a normal life there? And so you need to be able to explain either why you wouldn't be safe, like why they could find you, why you think they would find you and harm you there, or why it would be unreasonable to make you relocate. And this is where actually harm or hardship for not just you, but your family members is relevant. Harm to your family members is not usually that relevant in an asylum case, but it is relevant to this question of the reasonableness of having to internally relocate to avoid persecution. So you want to be thinking about, are there reasons that either the bad guys would find me there, or it would be really hard for me. Maybe there's medical care that you or your family needs that's not available there, or education for your children that's not available, or really anything else that is like a real hardship could be relevant to this analysis. Okay. All right. Providence Computational Design and Architecture has their interview scheduled, and they applied less than a month ago. Do you hear this? TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. Do you hear this? This person on YouTube, Providence Computational Design, says, my asylum case has been pending less than a month, but I have my biometrics appointment and my interview notice. That's right. They applied less than a month ago, and they already have their interview notice. People are pretty shocked these days to hear me say that, hey, if you apply for asylum now, you might get your interview right away, like within a month or two. Because look, everyone knows of people in their communities that have been waiting for several years, 3, 6, 10 years for an interview. And so people think, oh, if I apply now for asylum, I won't get my interview for a long time. It'll probably be like years. And they don't. So they think I'll just be able to apply and then not think about it for a long time. I'll just chill. But actually, a lot of people who are applying right now are getting the interview pretty much right away. They're getting it like often within 1 to 3 months of applying. We've had clients have their interview within, I think, 3 weeks in one case of applying. Okay. So the point is, if you're applying now for asylum, you got to be ready. I hope you have an asylum lawyer helping you, and I hope that they are doing everything they need to do and able to do so quickly to get you prepared and present the strongest case possible for you. Providence Computational Design, we should talk, okay? Look, if you don't have a lawyer, I think you should talk with one. And I don't know when, you didn't say when your interview is. I don't know if we have time, depending on when the date is. We might have time to do sort of the full representation from here on out, meaning help you with documents like the declaration, evidence, and us write the legal brief and then prepare you and then represent you. But at a minimum, what we can offer you is our mock asylum interview experience, the mock asylum interview experience. This is the most important part. Okay, of everything we do with our clients, the preparation is by far the most important part. It consists of a 2-hour mock interview. Well, first of all, for a few minutes, we sort of give you context and set the stage and tell you what to expect. And we talk a little bit of strategy with you about what the most important things are that you're need to be focusing on in your testimony. And then we do the practice interview from start to finish. We put you through everything you're going to go through on the day of the interview so that you feel what it's like to be in this position. After the mock interview, you can go into the real interview with confidence because you already know what kind of questions you're going to get. You know what it feels like to be in this position. You know what the different procedures are for the day. All this is going to give you confidence, okay? So it's a 2-hour session. And then a day or 2 or 3 later, we do what we call a debrief session or a follow-up session. And this one lasts 30 minutes where we are going to give you feedback. We're taking notes during the mock interview, and we're going to give you feedback based on those notes about what you could do better. We're going to just help you to tell your story in a clearer, more impactful way, making sure that you're focusing on the right things to give the officer the information they need to see that you should win asylum, okay? And there's some other stuff that we include in this package, this service called the Mock Asylum Interview Experience. But those are the 2 main pillars, the 2-hour mock interview and the 30-minute debrief session. This is the most important part of the whole representation that we do with our clients. This preparation part is the most important. It's more important than the documents. It's even more important than having a lawyer represent you on the day of your interview. Okay. So if you want to talk with us about the mock asylum interview experience, then I want you to schedule a consultation. The consultation is necessary. It's a first step. It is not the same as doing the mock interview. You need to do a consultation first so that we can analyze your case and tell you whether you qualify for the mock asylum interview experience, because not everyone qualifies. We don't offer it to everyone. We need to think that you have at least some chance of winning before we'll offer you that service. Because look, I don't want to take thousands of dollars from you if I think that we can't really help you in a meaningful way. I wouldn't feel good about that. So the first step is to do a consultation. The first step is a consultation, which you can schedule at winasylum.com. That's WINASYLUM.com. WINASYLUM.com to schedule this consultation so we can see whether you qualify for the mock interview experience. Okay. We call this the experience. Our clients tell us all the time that they think this aspect of the representation, the preparation, was the most important, the most meaningful, and the biggest thing that contributed in the most powerful way to their asylum success. Okay. Awesome. We have a super nice comment from Marla Vera who says, "Thank you, Political Asylum, for helping me in the process. I got mine approved 3 weeks ago." So one of our clients there, Marla on YouTube, sending some love our way. I'll tell my colleagues, Marla, that you had these kind words for us. They'll be super glad to hear that. Thank you for mentioning it. I appreciate that, Marla. Very kind of you. Thank you. All right. Yilan Ong says, "My question is, how soon will you help to rid of Mandamus lawsuit in San Francisco office when my case has been pending since March 2020? And how soon may I expect to get an interview?" So Yilan, yeah, the filing should happen very soon. In terms of when the lawsuit is filed to when the interview gets scheduled, there's no guarantees on that, but usually it's within we usually receive the notice, the interview notice, within usually 2 or 3 months of filing the lawsuit. And then when is the actual interview date? Again, there's no guarantees on that, but it's often within a few months of receiving that notice. Okay. And then the question here was, can I request USCIS to set a Zoom interview without going to the office in person? No, you can't do that for the question. Let me address it like this. The question is this: can you ask to do your asylum interview with USCIS virtually, like by video conference? No. In immigration court, sometimes the judges mandate or dictate that a hearing will be by video conference. And even if they don't, even if your notice says in person for a court hearing, you can make a motion where you ask the judge, "Hey judge, can we do this by video conference?" Sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no. So in court, sometimes it's an option. At the asylum office, it's never an option. They do not allow anyone to do the asylum interview virtually. Now look, actually they'll let a lawyer participate virtually, but the applicant, you got to show up in person. Okay. Oh, it says Oropana says, "Brian, your sound is low." Let me turn this mic up. I had this problem yesterday too. I'm turning my mic up. Is it any better now? Can somebody else tell me how's my volume? How's my sound right now? Is it low or is it okay? Nice. Freak and Avant says the same thing. Sound is down. How about now? How's my sound now? Hello, hello, hello. You guys got me? Is it better? Sorry about that. Cellbotics said we're talking about your boyfriend, says he'll reach out to get help asking for virtual for the second hearing. Just so you know, that's not something that he could hire us for, like just to do that. We don't offer that as a service on its own. If he hired us to be his lawyers, to actually help him with his case, we would do that for free, like at no extra cost. But he couldn't hire us just to do the request for for virtual hearing. Okay. Ife Gaming says, what are the chances of winning this case? I don't have any evidence to present to the judge. Good question. The question is this. Do you have a real chance at winning your asylum case if you don't really have any evidence? Look, sometimes people don't even apply for asylum because they feel like they don't have good evidence to back up what they're saying. And that's a huge mistake, because guess what? You don't actually need evidence to win your asylum case. Look, it's true. Evidence helps, right? If you have documentation, whether it's photographs or medical records or letters of like from witnesses, things like this that, are evidence, yeah, they can help your case. They can back up what you're saying. But the truth is, you can win with zero evidence. In fact, the law actually says this, that you can be found credible and win asylum based on your testimony alone, what you say on the day of your interview or court hearing. You can win asylum based just on that. As long as your testimony is detailed, consistent, and plausible, you can win without evidence. So don't give up if you feel like you don't have great evidence. You can still win your case. You need to have a great day of testimony, but that's something that an asylum lawyer can help you with to prepare. The preparation is absolutely key for this, for any case. But look, it's even more important if you don't have strong evidence. And we offer this service of preparation for a hearing or an interview as a standalone service. If you don't have time to hire us for more complete service representation, or if you don't have the funds, we do offer the preparation, which is the most important part, as a standalone service called the Mock Asylum Interview Experience. And it starts with a consultation. We need to talk with you first to see if you qualify for the service. And you can schedule this consultation at winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com, winasylum.com to schedule the consultation. Okay? We want to talk. All right. Vladimir says, I had a short transfer in London without leaving the airport. Should I indicate that I traveled through another country? Question 2A. Yes. The question is this. So on the asylum application form, there's this question that asks what other countries you've been in. And the question is whether you need to include a country where you just had either like a short layover, like your airplane stopped there and you went into the airport and you had a layover for an hour, a few hours, whatever, and got another plane. Or what if you touched down, but you actually didn't get off the plane, and then some new people got onto the plane, but then your plane took off without you ever even getting off the plane. In those situations, do you need to indicate to the officer that, yes, I've been in this other country? Yes, I think you should. Look, it's just safer. I know it may seem kind of silly, but it's safer to be on the side of more disclosure and being super open, super transparent. It's safer than withholding something that the officer could say, oh, you lied about that, even though you're clearly not trying to like lie to gain some advantage in your asylum case. Sometimes it's looked at as if you were by these sometimes overly zealous asylum officers who are looking for excuses to deny you. So yeah, I would include it. Mathieu, we've been discussing this. How long must my case be pending at the Chicago Asylum Office before I file a Mandamus lawsuit? And I'm glad I have this opportunity to address this with you. Hopefully you're still on here. Look, normally we only take cases at 5 years, where the case has been pending for 5 years. There's some exceptions we'll make to that, and where basically we charge more money, and we don't give sort of the same kind of like kind of a partial guarantee that we sometimes give. to people. We don't give that because we anticipate that we're going to have to fight this one out, and it's going to take a long time and be difficult. It's going to take a lot of our time and effort to fight this. If we file at fewer than 5 years, we think there's a good chance the government is going to file a motion to dismiss, and that can require us to do litigation. We might have to go to hearings in federal court, prepare for federal court discovery, things like this. That's a lot of work. And so we would need you to know, in cases where we decide, okay, we'll make an exception and do it at less than 5 years, we need you to be, we would need, I'm not saying we are going to do it, but I'm saying where we do decide that, we would need the person to understand that, look, this is probably going to cause like a fight with the government where it's going to take a long time to resolve. And it will probably take like a year, maybe, to even if we win that lawsuit, it will probably take like a year to get it to get it finished. Like they'll probably fight us, and it'll take the judge a long time to actually get to the decision, such that you need to know it's probably not going to be a quick fix. Okay, so that's kind of how that works. So it's Meezy says, after submitting initial draft of your personal statement to your law firm, do you edit it or do you suggest changes to the client and they're expected to edit it? Look, so yeah, let me address, this is a good question. The question is this. So how does my law firm deal with a personal statement or declaration that a client submits with their case? We do think a declaration can be an important and powerful part of your case. We handle this very differently, though, whether your case is with USCIS or with immigration court, depending on which it is. With USCIS, for some reason, the officers, they think it's like fraudulent if the lawyer plays a large role in this, like if it's clearly written by a lawyer. In immigration court, it's the opposite. The judges want the lawyer to write it because it's usually going to be better and just more concise and address the right things. So in immigration court, we get to really understand your case, and then we write it from scratch. And then we have you review it and tell us whether everything is true and correct, and edit it if it's not, until we get your blessing. But in the asylum office, it's different. We take a lighter touch. In the asylum office, we ask you to write a draft. And then we ask you a ton of questions. Well, we ask you to write a draft based on some specific instructions that we have. And then we look at it and we ask you a ton of questions about it to really get to know your case. And then we're going to make suggested edits, like some suggested edits, probably not a ton, just to make sure that it's like clear and that we're focusing on the right things, but we are not rewriting it for you. It's still going to be in your voice. It's going to be your tone. It's just going to be us making a few suggested edits for the purpose of trying to be clear, mainly, and just focusing on the right things. And then you will decide whether to accept our recommended edits or not. At the end of the day, it's going to be yours with some input and suggestions from your lawyer after your lawyer asks you a bunch of questions about it. Because they're going to ask you about this at your asylum interview. They're going to say, how did you create this? Did your lawyer help you? What did they do? We want you to be able to honestly and openly say, look, I did a draft. My lawyer asked questions about it. They made some suggestions about how to make it clear, and I accepted some of them and not some of them, and that's it. That's what we want to happen. Okay? James Turing says, I hold a tourist visa in the United States. I have not been persecuted in my home country. Can I join an opposition party in order to meet the requirements of the U.S. asylum laws and obtain asylum? Well, look, there is no rule that says you need to join an opposition party to win asylum, and the mere fact that you join an opposition party is not enough to win asylum. The question, James, is whether you really fear being persecuted in your country. If you fear being harmed, then you should consider talking with an asylum lawyer. If you don't fear being harmed in your country, then asylum would not be the appropriate route for you. Okay? Clarence Jean-Jacques says, is the one-year filing deadline still valid if you had legal status during that time? Good question. The question is this. Does having legal immigration status during your first year in the United States serve as an exception to the 1-year filing deadline. Look, we're talking about the rule, the 1-year filing deadline that says that normally to win asylum, you need to file that application during the first year. If you don't, you're barred under the 1-year filing deadline. But there's 2 categories of exceptions. One category is called the changed circumstances exception. The other is called the extraordinary circumstances exception. And within the extraordinary circumstances exception, the federal regulations list a few examples of what could count as that. And one of them is, they call it the maintenance of status exception, that says that, yeah, if you maintain status continuously throughout your entire first year, and then that's an exception. So you might come as a student and be here for 3 or 4 years, but you have valid status and you don't violate it. It's valid the entire time. You can still apply after 3 years, 4 years, 10 years, if you've held status that entire time. If you lose your status after, let's say, 2 or 3 years, whatever, sometime after 1 year, you can still apply after you've lost that status, but you need to do so quickly. You have to apply within a reasonable time of losing that status in order to still qualify for this exception to the 1-year filing deadline. And I would say that you need to, what is a reasonable time? Within 2 months of losing your status, you'll probably be safe. If you wait more than 2 months, it's starting to get risky. If you get to like 5 or 6 months, very risky, that it will not be considered reasonable. Okay? So you got to act quick. Nice. Okay, volume is better. The sound is better. I see people now that said that a couple minutes ago when I asked about that. Thank you for helping me get that. Making sure I got that sorted out. Yata says, I have an upcoming individual hearing in November, but I'm hearing now that they grant asylum only to people who have children or a wife back home. Please, is that true? The question is this: is it true that they're only granting asylum now to people who have a wife or child back home in their home country? No. Completely not true. That's a rumor. That's a lie. Myth. I've never actually heard it until now, until you asked it. No. Whether you have family back in your home country has really no impact on your chances for winning asylum in the United States. So you just need to focus on, meeting the asylum eligibility requirements and building a strong case to show the judge that you qualify for asylum. And that means ideally presenting a strong case on paper, but then presenting a great case on the day of your hearing or your asylum interview through your testimony. That's the most important part. The documents help, but the testimony is the most important part. And the preparation for that testimony is the absolute key to giving yourself the best possible chance of winning your asylum case. And we offer full-scale representation from beginning to end. But if you don't have time for that, or you can't afford that, we can also do a standalone service of just the preparation to help you prepare through a mock hearing. Okay, we do a full-scale mock hearing so that you experience everything you're going to experience on the day of the real hearing. And you get to practice telling your story under these realistic conditions. And then you get feedback where we give you tips and guidance on how to do better, how to tell your story in a clear way that shows the judge everything they need to know to see that you meet all the requirements for asylum eligibility. Okay, we can talk about that in a consultation. In order to hire us for the mock asylum interview or mock asylum hearing service that we offer, you first need to do a consultation with us, because we need to talk and assess your case and see whether we think you qualify, whether you're eligible for this, because not everyone's eligible for this mock interview or mock hearing experience. You got to qualify, and you got to first see if you qualify by doing a consultation through, you can schedule that at winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com. That's where you go to schedule the consultation. Okay. I'm Brian Manning, and I'm a former asylum officer turned asylum lawyer, and my law firm helps immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. That's what we do all day, every day is asylum. And we would love to talk with you if you think you might want help with your asylum case. Just go right now to winasylum.com to schedule a consultation with one of our asylum professionals, WINASYLUM.com. asylum.com. winasylum.com. That's it for today. Look, it's really a pleasure and an honor for me to be here with you, with this community. It's an honor to serve you in your asylum journey. So until next time, I hope to see you guys